Welcome to Royal Village Tales, where love, betrayal, and destiny collide in the most unexpected ways. Every story you hear here carries a lesson. Every choice has a consequence, and every secret always finds its way to the light. Sit back, relax, and listen carefully, because today's story might change the way you see people forever. They called him useless, a nobody, a man who would never succeed. But the girl who believed in him had no idea she was about to lose him forever. In a small dusty village just outside the city lived a young man named Elvis. He wasn't like the others. While most men spent their days drinking and chasing quick pleasures, Elvis worked quietly, doing whatever he could just to survive. Some days he carried cement under the burning sun. Other days he washed cars for coins that barely fed him. No matter how hard he tried, it was never enough for people. They laughed at him openly, mocked his torn clothes, and whispered behind his back that he would never become anything in life. But there was one person who never laughed. Her name was Nora. Nora saw something different in Elvis. She didn't see his struggles or his empty pockets. She saw his heart. Every evening, they would sit under an old mango tree at the edge of the village, talking about life, dreams, and a future that felt so far away. She believed in him with a kind of faith that even Elvis himself didn't have. "You won't be like this forever," she would always say. Elvis would smile, shaking his head gently. "People like me don't get lucky, Nora." But she never stopped believing. As time passed, their bond grew stronger. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, real, and deeply rooted. But sometimes, love alone is not strong enough to survive the weight of reality. One afternoon, Nora's parents called her inside. Sitting in their living room was a man dressed in expensive clothes, confident, with the kind of presence that demanded attention. Outside, a shiny car reflected the sunlight. His name was Kelvin, a wealthy businessman from the city. He had come for one reason: to ask for Nora's hand in marriage. That night, Nora cried. "I don't want him," she told her mother. "I love Elvis." Her mother's expression turned cold. "Love does not feed a family," she replied. "That boy has nothing to offer you." Meanwhile, the entire village buzzed with the news. Elvis heard it like everyone else. People laughed again, saying he had lost his girl to a rich man, that he was never on her level. He tried to act strong, but that night, sleep never came. The next day, Nora ran to him, her eyes filled with tears. "They want me to marry him," she said. "But I can refuse. I can stay with you." Elvis looked at her. Then at his empty hands. No house, no money, no future he could promise. Just love. And suddenly, love didn't feel like enough. "You deserve better," he said quietly. Nora froze. "What do you mean? You shouldn't suffer because of me," Elvis continued. "I don't want to hold you back." Tears streamed down her face. "So, you're just giving up on us?" He looked away, because if he looked into her eyes, he would break. "This is the best thing for you." "No," she said, her voice shaking. "This is the easiest thing for you." Those words hit him deeply. But he said nothing, because deep down, he knew she was right. A week later, the village was alive with celebration. Music filled the air, people danced, and luxury surrounded everything. Nora's wedding had become the biggest event the village had ever seen. But behind her smile, behind the makeup and the expensive dress, she was broken. As she walked down the aisle, she searched the crowd one last time, hoping Elvis would come and stop everything. But he never came. Instead, Elvis sat alone under the mango tree. The place where they once dreamed together now felt empty. That day, he made a silent promise. He would never be powerless again. The next morning, he left the village without a word. Years passed, 5 long years. The village stayed the same, but their lives changed completely. Nora's new life looked perfect from the outside. Big house, expensive clothes, a life full of comfort. But inside, It was different. Her husband was not the man he pretended to be. He became cold, controlling, and over time, cruel. The happiness she once had slowly disappeared, replaced by regret and silence. One night, after another painful argument, Nora sat alone in the dark. Tears falling quietly, she whispered a name she had tried to forget. Elvis. Far away in the city, a black SUV stopped in front of a massive building. Guards stepped out first, then a man followed. Tall, confident, dressed in a sharp suit, with a presence that commanded respect. That man was Elvis. No one laughed at him anymore. No one called him useless. He had built everything from nothing and become one of the most successful businessmen around. But success didn't erase the past, because sometimes, late at night, he still remembered her. Then one day, news spread across the village. Elvis was coming back. The same people who once mocked him now waited in anticipation. When his convoy arrived and he stepped out, silence filled the air. The boy they laughed at had returned as a man they could no longer ignore. Among the crowd stood Nora. She had returned to the village after leaving her husband, tired of a life that only brought her pain. Their eyes met. 5 years of memories, love, regret, and silence passed between them in a single moment. Nora walked slowly toward him. Elvis, she said softly. He looked at her calmly, but his eyes revealed everything he tried to hide. I heard you came back, she said. And you? He asked. I left, she replied. I wasn't happy. A moment of silence passed. I'm sorry, Elvis said quietly. For what? She asked. For letting you go. Those words carried the weight of years. Nora smiled sadly. We were young and afraid. I thought I was protecting you, he said. And I thought you didn't love me enough to fight, she replied. Both of them were right. And both were wrong. The wind moved gently around them, just like it used to under the mango tree. So what happens now? Nora asked. Elvis looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, life doesn't always give second chances. Her heart sank. But sometimes, he continued, it gives better ones. He stepped closer, his voice calm but certain. This time, I won't run. Tears filled Nora's eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from hope. Sometimes, life separates people not to end their story, but to rewrite it the right way. And sometimes, the people you lose are the ones you're meant to find again, when you're finally ready. So tell me, if you were Nora, would you give love a second chance? Or walk away forever? Welcome back to Royal Village Tales, where every choice has a consequence, and every story reveals a truth we often learn too late. If you thought their story had ended, then listen closely, because this is where everything truly begins. The air between them felt heavy, like the past itself was standing right there with them. Nora's heart was racing. After everything, after all the years, the pain, the silence, Elvis was standing in front of her again, not as the man she once knew, but as someone stronger, someone she almost didn't recognize. This time, I won't run, he had said. Those words echoed in her mind, but something inside her was no longer the same. Time had changed her too. Nora took a slow step back. Elvis, she said softly, her voice trembling just slightly. You don't get to say that like nothing happened. His expression shifted. Not anger, not surprise, but understanding. I waited, she continued. That day, at the wedding, I waited for you to come. I believed you would fight for us, even if it meant standing against the whole village. Elvis lowered his eyes. But you didn't come, she said. You let me go. Without a fight, silence followed, because there was nothing he could say to erase that truth. I had thought I was doing the right thing, he replied quietly. I thought if I let you go, you'd have a better life. Nora let out a small, painful smile. And look how that turned out. Those words hit differently, not with anger, but with reality. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind carried the distant sounds of the village, but around them, everything felt still. I suffered, Elvis, Nora said finally. Not because I married the wrong man, but because I lost the right one. Elvis closed his eyes briefly. That sentence alone carried years of regret. But I've also learned something, she added. He looked at her again. Love is not enough, she said, not without courage. That one hit even deeper, because she was right. Love had been there. Strong, real, unshaken. But courage? That was what they lacked. Days passed after that conversation. The village couldn't stop talking. Some said they would get back together. Others said too much had happened. Everyone had an opinion, but only two people truly understood the weight of the situation. Elvis didn't rush anything. For the first time in his life, he was patient. Not because he was unsure, but because he finally understood that some things cannot be forced. One evening, just like before, Nora found herself walking toward the mango tree, the same place where everything once began. But this time, she wasn't the same girl. And he wasn't the same man. Elvis was already there, sitting quietly, just like he used to. You still come here? She asked as she approached. He smiled slightly. Some things don't change. She sat beside him. Not too close. Not too far. Just enough to feel his presence. I've been thinking, Nora said. That's dangerous, Elvis replied lightly. For the first time, she laughed. A real laugh. Not forced. Not broken. Just real.com. And in that moment, something shifted. I'm not the same Nora you knew, she said. I know, he replied. And I'm not the same Elvis either. She nodded. That's why this is hard, she admitted. Because I don't know if we're trying to continue the past or start something new. Elvis looked at her carefully. Then don't continue the past, he said. Start something new. Those words stayed with her. Because for the first time, it didn't feel like going backward. It felt like moving forward. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, carefully, they began again. Not as two people holding on to what they lost, but as to people building something stronger. They talked more, understood more. And this time, when things got difficult, they didn't run. But life always has one more test. One afternoon, a car pulled into the village. A familiar car. Kelvin. The moment people saw him, whispers spread quickly. Why is he here? Didn't Nora leave him? He looks angry. Kelvin stepped out, his face cold, his presence still intimidating. He hadn't come for peace. He had come for control. Within minutes, he found Nora. You think you can just walk away, he said sharply. Nora stood her ground. I already did, she replied calmly. You belong to me, Kelvin snapped. No, she said firmly. I don't belong to anyone. That was the moment Elvis stepped forward. Not aggressively, not emotionally, but firmly. She said no, Elvis said. Kelvin looked at him and laughed. So this is the man, he mocked. The same poor boy you left me for? Elvis didn't react, because he didn't need to prove anything anymore. That life is over, Nora said, and so are you. For a moment, tension filled the air. Then Kelvin realized something. He no longer had power here. Not over her. Not over anything. Without another word, he turned and left. And just like that, the past finally lost its grip. Nora looked at Elvis. You didn't run, she said softly. He smiled. I told you I wouldn't. This time, she stepped closer, not out of fear, not out of loneliness, but out of choice. And this time, Elvis didn't hesitate. Some people come into your life to teach you love. Others come to teach you pain. But the rare ones teach you both, so you can finally understand what truly matters. Elvis and Nora didn't find their way back to each other because life was easy. They found their way back because they became strong enough to choose each other again. And sometimes, that's what love really is. Not perfection, but growth. So tell me, if you had a second chance with someone you once loved, would you take it, or let the past stay in the past?